The version of the sixth day you saw is what happens when a sheep named Dolly forces Hollywood to rewrite the future. Today we're counting down 15 facts about the sixth day. Stick around for number 1, because Arnold Schwarzenegger nearly drowned in a tank of milky water, and the safety measure
It's always difficult to do those things.
that was supposed to prevent it was the reason it almost happened. Dolly. The sheep changed the entire film. The sixth day was originally written to take place 20 to 30 years in the future, a comfortable sci-fi distance that gave the story room to breathe. Then reality started moving faster than the script. On February 22, 1997, the announcement came that scientists at the Roslin Institute in Scotland had successfully cloned an adult sheep named Dolly, the first mammal ever cloned from an adult cell. Overnight, human cloning stopped being a distant hypothetical and became something that felt uncomfortably close. The production immediately reassessed the timeline. A story set decades away suddenly needed to be set in 2015, just 15 years out. To stay ahead of science rather than lag behind it, the script hadn't changed. The world under it had shifted. A film about the ethics of cloning had to move its own future closer, because the present had accelerated past what anyone on the production had planned for. 14, the writers were pigeonholed. As family movie writers, first before the sixth day, husband and wife writing team Cormac and Marianne Wibberley had sold their second script together to Disney. That sale was fast and good and paid well. It was also a trap. Disney immediately classified them as family movie writers, a label that followed them through every subsequent meeting and closed doors the moment they pitched anything with an edge. The Wibberleys spent years fighting that classification before the sixth day gave them a way out. A science fiction thriller about human cloning, corporate corruption, and identity theft was about as far from Disney Family Entertainment as the script could get. They sold it, it got made, and it starred the biggest action star in the world. The family movie writers had escaped the label. They went on to co-write National Treasure and National Treasure Book of Secrets, which were ironically family movies. Some labels are harder to outrun than others. 13. Joe Dante was replaced because of Schwarzenegger. Before Roger Spottiswoode directed The Sixth Day, Joe Dante was attached. The man behind Gremlins, The Howling, and Inner Space was set to make the film until Arnold Schwarzenegger signed on to star. Dante's departure was confirmed years later in a Reddit AMA, where he responded to a fan question about working with Schwarzenegger. He said simply that he had almost worked with Arnold on The Sixth Day, but that Schwarzenegger was wrong for the part. The script had been written with a bewildered everyman in mind, an ordinary family man thrust into extraordinary circumstances who doesn't know how to fight his way out. Schwarzenegger is many things, bewildered and ordinary are not among them. Dante saw the mismatch between the script's conception and the star who had been attached to it. The studio chose the star. Dante moved on. The director, who might have turned the film's identity crisis into something sharp,
different ways of enhancing things and enriching them and making it more interesting,
was replaced by the man behind Tomorrow Never Dies, which is about as far from sharp as a $25 million action star can take you. 12. Quality Schwarzenegger personally recruited Robert Duvall. Robert Duvall was not cast in The Sixth Day through conventional channels. Arnold Schwarzenegger wanted him specifically and went after him directly. Schwarzenegger had a clear sense of what Dr. Griffin Weir needed to be. Not a standard villain scientist, but a good man who had made terrible choices and understood exactly what they had cost. Duvall was the actor Schwarzenegger believed could carry that moral weight without explanation. He reached out personally, made the case for the role, and Duvall accepted. The result is the film's most quietly effective performance. A scientist who helped build an industry he's no longer sure he can defend, played by one of American cinema's most unshowy performers. Critics who otherwise dismissed the film frequently singled out Duvall's scenes as the points where it came closest to the film it might have been. Schwarzenegger had surrounded himself with someone more interesting than the material. The instinct was right. The material caught up less often than it should have. 11. The film earned 3 Razzie nominations and lost all of them. The Sixth Day received 3 Razzie Award nominations at the 2001 ceremony. Schwarzenegger was nominated for Worst Actor as the real Adam Gibson. He was also nominated for Worst Supporting Actor as the cloned Adam Gibson, and both versions of Adam were jointly nominated for Worst Screen Couple. Schwarzenegger was Schwarzenegger. 3 nominations, 3 different categories, all for the same actor in the same film. He lost all 3. The film that beat him across every category was Battlefield Earth, John Travolta's catastrophic adaptation of L. Ron Hubbard's novel, which remains one of the most thoroughly dismantled films in Hollywood history. The Sixth Day was nominated for being bad. Battlefield Earth was so much worse that it made The Sixth Day look competitive by comparison. Being shut out of the Razzies by Battlefield Earth is a specific kind of consolation prize. Schwarzenegger had managed to make a film so mediocre that the Razzies couldn't bring themselves to reward it over a genuine disaster. 10. The VFX shot count grew from 300 to 700 during production. The Sixth Day entered production with a visual effects plan built around 300 shots. By the time the production was fully underway, that number had more than doubled to 700 shots. The scope of the film's near-future world, the Whispercraft vehicles, the Repet cloning stores, the infusion lab, the holographic interfaces required far more digital construction than anyone had originally budgeted for. VFX supervisor Peter Caron confirmed that the infusion lab sequence alone consumed 3 months of build time using 2 separate crews working around the clock in shifts. The lab featured 2 water tanks, one holding 85,000 gallons and one holding 32,000 gallons, both filled with water heated to 86 degrees. To make the environment more bearable for the actors who had to work in them, a film that began with 300 effects shots delivered 700 because the future it was building kept expanding into every frame. 9. Schwarzenegger almost drowned in the tank scene. One of the infusion lab's water tanks became the site of a genuine near disaster during production. The scene required Schwarzenegger's character to hide underwater inside the tank while his pursuers searched for him above. The sequence was first rehearsed with Schwarzenegger wearing goggles, all appropriate precautions in place, the water conditions manageable. When the time came to film without goggles, the problem became immediately apparent. The water had been treated with a substance that turned it milky and opaque, which looked correct on camera but made it completely impossible for Schwarzenegger to see underwater. Unable to orient himself in water he couldn't see through, Schwarzenegger ran into serious difficulty. The production paused. Safety protocols were reassessed. The precaution that had been taken to make the water visually appropriate for the scene was the precise reason the scene had become dangerous. The one thing designed to make the sequence work had nearly drowned its star. 8. The film's future predictions were eerily accurate. The Sixth Day was widely dismissed in 2000 as a generic action film dressed in sci-fi clothing. 25 years later, the world it imagined has arrived in pieces. Smart refrigerators that monitor their own contents and notify you when supplies run low. Present in the film, now standard in modern appliances. Self-driving cars navigating suburban streets without a human at the wheel. In the film, now in active commercial development, life-size interactive dolls with voices and reactive faces. The film's terrifying SimPal predates real-world AI companion toys by 15 years. The film also features a holographic virtual attorney who transforms into a virtual psychiatrist mid-conversation, an interface that maps directly onto current AI assistant technology. A movie critics called unimaginative in its conception of the future, was quietly building a world that audiences now recognize not as science fiction, but as Last Tuesday. 7. The opening XFL scene featured a league that died before the film left theaters. The Sixth Day opens at an XFL game, the Extreme Football League founded by Vince McMahon as a competitor to the NFL. The XFL appears in the film as an established institution of the near future. Its branding prominently displayed, its games a natural part of the 2015 entertainment landscape. The XFL launched its inaugural season in February 2001, 3 months after the Sixth Day opened. It folded permanently after one season. The league that the film presented as a permanent fixture of the coming decades was dead within a year of the film's release. A movie set 15 years in the future had confidently included a sports league that didn't survive 15 months. The XFL was later revived and again shut down, making the 6 days accidental prediction about its longevity one of the most quietly accurate things in the film. The future it imagined was wrong about the XFL twice, which turns out to be exactly right. 6. Terry Crews made his film debut as a henchman. Terry Crews was not yet Terry Crews when the 6th Day filmed in Vancouver in 1999. He was a former NFL defensive end who had played for the Los Angeles Rams, San Diego Chargers, and Washington Redskins before his football career ended without the breakthrough he had hoped for. He had moved to Los Angeles to pursue acting. The 6th Day was his first film. Credit a role as Vincent Bandsworth, one of Drucker's cloned muscle-for-hire enforcers who keeps dying and being brought back, increasingly irritated by the experience each time. Crews had no significant film or television credits before this. He was 3 years away from Friday After Next and 5 years away from Everybody Hates Chris, the film that launched one of Hollywood's most recognizable and beloved personalities. Didn't know what it was launching. The 6th Day gave Terry Crews his first screen credit. He did considerably more with what came after it than the film did with him. 5 Trapper, the writers struggled to be taken seriously for years after. After the 6th Day came and went, Cormac and Marianne Wibberley found themselves navigating a Hollywood that remained uncertain about what kind of writers they were. The science fiction thriller had broken them out of the family movie box. Then the films they went on to write, including National Treasure and its sequel, I Spy and G-Force, put them back in a different version of the same box. The 6th Day was meant to be the proof that they could write something darker and more complex. It became instead a credit that existed alongside the family adventure films and made it harder to read their intentions as writers. The Wibberleys continued working consistently through the 2000s and beyond, but the identity question that had plagued them from the start, family writers or genre writers, broad or sharp, was never quite resolved by a film that was trying to answer it. Some credits clarify a career. The 6th Day asked more questions than it answered. For the production hired a cloning consultant. The DVD release of the 6th Day includes a making-of featurette titled The Future is Coming. In the credits for that featurette, among the standard production roles appears a title that exists nowhere else in the history of Hollywood crew documentation. Nancy Tate is listed as cloned consultant. Not cloning consultant, cloned consultant. Whether this was a deliberate joke embedded in the credits or an accidental typo that became the most on-brand error in the film's production history has never been officially clarified. The production had sought genuine scientific input to ground its near-future cloning technology in something plausible. The Dolly the sheep references, the infusion lab mechanics, the repet technology were all built with real research underpinning them. The person hired to provide that input was credited as having already undergone the process they were consulting on. No correction was ever issued. 3. The film's opening weekend loss to Rugrats. In Paris, the 6th Day opened on November 17, 2000, against a field that included How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Charlie's Angels, and Rugrats in Paris, the movie. It came in 4th. Arnold Schwarzenegger, a man who had topped the box office with Terminator 2, True Lies, and Total Recall, opened his $82 million science fiction thriller behind an animated film about cartoon babies in France. The opening weekend gross came in at approximately $13 million. The film eventually reached $96 million worldwide, which sounds functional until measured against the $82 million production budget plus the marketing costs that pushed the true break-even point well beyond what the worldwide gross could cover. A movie that asked deep philosophical questions about identity, humanity, and corporate power was answered at the box office by families choosing to watch Rugrats. The market had spoken. Cloning lost to Chucky Finster. 2. Arnold himself produced the film. The 6th Day was not simply a film that Schwarzenegger starred in, he produced it. His production company was directly involved in bringing the project to screen, which explains several of the film's more distinctive choices, including the active recruitment of Robert Duvall and the willingness to take a $25 million salary on a film with a budget that made that number structurally challenging from day one. Producer stars have a different relationship to their films than actors for hire. They make decisions, they shape casting, they influence tone. The film's attempt to balance serious science fiction inquiry with Schwarzenegger action movie conventions was not entirely a studio imposition. It reflected the sensibility of a man who had earned the right to make the film he wanted and wanted both things at once. The result was a film that was neither fully one thing nor the other, which is what happens when the star and the genre are pulling in slightly different directions than the star has producing credit. 1. Arnold nearly drowned because the safety measure blinded him. Everything about the tank sequence was designed with Schwarzenegger's safety in mind. The water was heated to 86 degrees for comfort. The scene was rehearsed with goggles before filming without them. The depth was controlled. The crew was positioned. What nobody fully accounted for was the effect of the water treatment on visibility beneath the surface. The production had added a substance to the water to create the correct visual opacity for the camera, a milky, diffuse quality that read beautifully on film. Underwater with no goggles, Schwarzenegger was completely blind in a tank holding tens of thousands of gallons of warm, opaque water, unable to see which direction was up or where the edge of the tank was. He ran into serious trouble. The very measure taken to make the scene look right on camera was what made it genuinely dangerous in the water. A star who had survived 30 years of action films on 2 continents almost drowned in a prop tank because someone had made the water look good. A film that predicted smart fridges, self-driving cars, and AI companions, and then got beaten at the box office by Rugrats in Paris. Which fact hit you hardest? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe for more deep dives into the sci-fi films that got lost between the idea and the execution. Until next time,